welcome. I appreciate your willingness to come on the show and traveling so far. And why don't you walk us through where you're from, what early childhood was like for you?
Sure. So I grew up in a rural area of Ontario, an hour west of Ottawa. Grew up primarily in a log house that my dad and mom built. And it was kind of in between both sets of grandparents. And they were both farmers. So I basically grew up the first 10, 12, 13 years of my life, either at one farm or the other, at one set of grandparents or the other. So I had a really nice sort of country upbringing. Got one brother, 2 years older than me. And if it was basically sports, playing outside in the winter, shoveling off the creek, playing hockey with the neighborhood kids. It was really a childhood where, like, my dad kind of taught me the love of learning. So he's an educator. He taught math and physics for over 30 years. He gave me kind of the love of learning. And my mom, I guess if I was trying to encapsulate my mom in a single sentence, it would be, she gave me the love of loving and the love of caring and taking care and serving people in her life. And it was a great upbringing. It's, I'm just really lucky. I didn't sort of realize it at the time, but looking back now, the childhood I was provided, not just by them, but my grandparents, aunts and uncles, extended family, they were kind of like the roots that I didn't know I was going to need to keep me stable in the storm later in life. But if I hadn't had the childhood I had, I don't know if I'd be here. Yeah. Really good people.
Were your parents together your whole childhood?
Not only my whole childhood, they're still together now.
Wow.
Actually, the house we grew up in was just down the road from a one-room schoolhouse. And my parents went to that one-room schoolhouse together. And my grandma, my dad's mom, was the single teacher in the one-room schoolhouse, where it was kindergarten to grade 8, all in one class of like 20, 25 kids, where they had to take turns bringing in the wood to keep it put in the wood stove.
Yeah.
And so they met when they were, the families knew each other before that, but in school, my dad, would have been in grade 1 or whatever, my mom in kindergarten.
Wow.
And they can remember having a crush on each other as young as like 8 and 10 years old. So they've essentially been together. They're now 78 and 80 for 70 years.
Wow. They did life together.
They've done their entire lives together.
Wow.
Yeah. So to have that as role models, for my own marriage. And, my mom, so my dad was a school teacher. My mom stayed at home for pretty much until we were teenagers. So it was, get off the bus, come into my mom. We always had family dinner about 4:00 early. As soon as my dad got home from school, it was automatic. Me and my brother, my mom and dad for dinner every night. And then usually it was stuff that she had picked out of our garden or home baked bread. It was this wholesome family that I was a part of. And then after dinners, it was playing sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you playing hockey?
Played some hockey. Played up to where I played 2 games of junior A. So I played midget and was affiliated with junior A back then. They did that. That was kind of I played up till about the age of 17 and then kind of got interested in other things, other sports and stuff. Played fastball in the summer. It was kind of our sport back then, underhand fastball.
Yep.
So we were either outside playing something or in a rink playing something most of our upbringing.
Canada breeds hockey players. Was it at any point in your life, was it just, you slept, ate, breathed hockey?
Well, it was one of those things that's different. It's different now. I coach my son at AA level, so it's different now. It's year round. If you want to be competitive, you're going all through the summer and all through the winter. But back then it wasn't as much like that. There was some summer hockey, but for me it was more, through the fall to the spring was hockey. But then in the summer, it was like we took a break from hockey. Yeah. It was, we were playing fastball, we were playing soccer, we were playing other stuff outside. Yeah.
It's funny when I played sports starting at 5, and that was my friend group, right?
Yeah,
we all played football. We all played either baseball or lacrosse, wrestled, basketball.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because every time you go into junior high or high school, you have this, core nucleus of friends already established before you're going into any new school or, and that camaraderie. Did you have that?
I had that. And it's, my martial arts coach years ago, we were talking about, raising kids. And, he was saying, put them in a sport. And I said, I'm going to, but why the importance? He said, well, when they become teenagers, the number one sort of predictor of whether they're going to end up in a good path or a bad path is their peers. So if you put them in sports, you were sort of unknowingly putting them into a peer group, which by default is going to be better than people that aren't in sports, people that aren't in activities, aren't doing. So you can't control your peers or their peers, but you can control getting them interested and passionate about a sport or activity.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's true. Logically, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was high school like for you?
High school was easy. I'm very lucky, and this isn't bragging. This is because I didn't do anything to achieve this, but I was identified as gifted in public school. It was about grade 3 or 4. I was getting into a little bit of trouble in the classroom, my first cousin and I. And it was primarily because we were bored. They'd give us a math quiz that we'd have 20 minutes to do, and we'd be done it in like 1 minute. And so then we'd be, causing trouble in the back of class. So they sent us both for some kind of testing, sort of neuropsych testing to see, what was going on. And they identified us both as gifted. So, we did some spec ed stuff to kind of keep us occupied or whatever. But so, public school and high school from a scholastic academic point of view was always pretty easy. It was non-stress. I could put in a little bit of work and get high 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
So that part of high school for me was a non-issue. And I was pretty popular in high school. I had a lot of different friend groups. Yeah. Sort of had the jock, sort of hockey players and athletes group that I hung out with. But I also had friends that were like super smart, academic oriented, and I hung out with them too. And then, I had some friends that were more into drugs, partying, things like that. And so I had this balance of like one night in the weekend, I'd go with that group because that's way more exciting and fun when you're a teenager. And then, the Saturday night I might be playing hockey and hanging out with the athlete types. So I was very lucky. I kind of was able to sort of belong and fit in a lot of different groups in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were a hybrid.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. As it turns out, I'm not sure if that was a positive or a negative, because I think to a certain extent it involved me kind of shifting my personality and being a bit of a chameleon.
Yeah.
A little bit inauthentic, I guess you would say.
Hey guys, quick update. Every Monday night, I host the Rise Above Recovery meeting. It's an open meeting for any addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, whatever you're struggling with, you're welcome here. To get the meeting link and weekly updates, just email me at kevin@riseabovepod.com and I'll add you to the list. Also, if this podcast has helped you, please like, subscribe, or leave a rating. It helps us continue to spread the message of hope. Lastly, if you'd like to go even deeper with Rise Above, check out our Patreon. Supporters get access to live interviews and can chat with guests after the interview. Thank you. So that's funny you bring that up because I was the same way. And
were you?
Yeah, that kind of unlocked this way of manipulation. And not saying you were doing that, but I was.
Yeah.
I was one way with this group. I was another way with this group, and I was another way with this group. And I kind of shifted my personality to be more like whatever I thought you wanted. And I could be that smart guy. I could be the guy who is into sports and does all the right things to better our team.
Yeah.
And then I can be a complete fucking scumbag and hang out with the dirtbags after school and smoke weed.
Yeah.
That went on to much bigger and greater things down the road that were very detrimental to me and my health. So, but anyway, so you graduate high school. Yep. You were gifted, so I'm going to assume you graduated high school on time. What did you do after high school?
Yeah, so, I went to the University of Waterloo for kinesiology. Mm-hmm. So I was big into sports and started lifting weights from a fairly young age. So I thought kinesiology, maybe medicine, maybe chiropractic. I wasn't sure, but kinesiology was going to give me the sciences and that kind of background that whichever path I picked, I could, So I went off to school and very quickly realized that, it's, I'm lucky that I was given this brain, gifted in that sense. I didn't do anything to earn it. It's genetics, I'm sure. But that'll only get you so far. And so I realized in a heavy sciences, kind of a pre-medish type program, like you got to grind, you got to put the work in. And I was just not ready to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I put a year in and then I was like, okay, I got to take a break from school. I got to do something different. So kind of dropped out of school for a bit, went to Australia, went to New Zealand, kind of backpacked around there, kind of sort of exploring, figuring stuff out. Came home, hitchhiked across Canada, came back into school, started in philosophy, radical shift from sort of a pre-med program like kinesiology, because I was sort of seeking and exploring at that point, trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with life. And then in there, when I was 21, I guess, 1993, so going on 22, I met my wife. And I started bartending all through my 20s, my late teens, early 20s. And so I started working in this bar, and she brought a resume in to be a waitress at this bar and a bartender. And it was one of those things, it's so cliche, love at first sight, but it was definitely lust at first sight for sure. Yeah. My wife is, you wouldn't maybe know it from looking at me, but she's gorgeous. And so I met her, and within weeks, very short amount of time, we were basically living together.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 32 years together.
You're still together today.
27 years married, 4 kids, 2 grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hired.
Right? Yeah. So, I spent a lot of my years in my 20s just kind of mostly bartending.
Yeah.
And then going to school kind of like part-time. Mm-hmm. Back then, distance education wasn't like, go online and take a course. They would literally mail you VHS tapes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Watch the course in the VHS tape and then, send an email or not email, mail assignments in, stuff like that. Yeah.
Grade them.
Yeah.
The whole 9.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
How much longer did you do that for? And then when did you kind of go into whichever field you were going to pursue?
Yeah. So in 2000, so I got my degree done, and I kind of only finished it because I sort of picked, I got to get to this bartending gig. Like, it's a great gig, great cash you can make, but it's missing the fulfillment piece. Like getting other people intoxicated, it can be fun when you're in your 20s, but it gets old after a while. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking I was going to do something in law enforcement. I had a cousin in law enforcement. I got hired on the auxiliary with that police service, which is kind of like volunteer sort of policing. And I got hired as a federal correctional officer, just sort of as a little stepping stone to getting into policing. And so that would have been in 2001.
2001. Okay. So you're what, like 30 at this time-ish?
Yeah.
Right around there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When 29. And so I started in corrections, and I did that for, I guess, a year or two, and then got hired on in 2003 full-time with Perth Police. Now, Perth is a little wee town west of Ottawa, about probably, 7,000 people, 6,000 people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was it like being a corrections officer for a federal prison in Canada? Was it in Ontario?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Wow. Well, I didn't last very long, and I couldn't have done a full career there. It's kind of like what you would think it would be, sort of. So in Canada, different from the States in that to do federal time in Canada, you have to have done, a lot of bad stuff across, consistently across time to get federal time for the most part. Mm-hmm. And so you're dealing with a lot of individuals that are, it's just a negative environment. Yeah. And you're around some bad dudes in there. So it was scary. It was dirty. It was negative. And, even a lot of the employees, the other guards, and, you can see why you could quickly get pretty negative too in that kind of a space.
Right. And
it was dangerous. Like, a lot of times you're walking down range with 30 inmates and you're not armed. You can't be armed because they take the weapon off you. Now they're armed.
Yeah.
So So you'd literally walk to the end of the range and have to hit a key punch to say that you'd done your walk basically and walk back. Mm-hmm. And your partner standing at the door with a walkie-talkie with a radio in case anything happens. And you had this little alarm on that you could press if, in case of emergency. It would send an alarm through all the guards. They could come and help you. We used to call it a time of death indicator. Yeah, so it was not a good, it's a very challenging career. Hats off to those people that can do, 25, 30 years in that career, because it's a tough go. You're in prison too for 12-hour shifts.
Leaving it there must be impossible and not bringing it home.
Yeah, and you always have to be at the bare minimum a low level of kind of readiness for threat, because there is literally danger around every corner there. These are dudes that have killed people and raped people.
What was the craziest thing you saw?
In my correctional career, I didn't see too much. I was challenged a few times. And so, one time I forget, I think we were doing a search of cells. And so we have to put everybody in contain them in sort of the kitchen area while we went and searched all their cells. And there was this one young guy kind of stepped up in my face. This was early on in my work there. And, I was young. I was 29, 30. And, I'd never been challenged in that way before. And, I stood my ground. And it turned out to be one of those things where nothing happened, but a lot could have happened, which sometimes those incidents can be more traumatic than the actual times when stuff happens. So nothing actually happened, but I can still remember the feeling of this guy in front of me. I don't have a weapon, him kind of stepping up in my face and challenging my authority.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That could be very intimidating.
It was.
And especially when someone's on one, like when they're like, their adrenaline's pumping and you could see it in their eyes. They're seeing blood.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not at that level. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. And so it's like, do you bring your level up to match?
Yep.
Or do you keep a calm voice, but assertive?
I've been in that situation.
Have you?
I have. I've been in that situation more than once. I was actually at a Yankees game one time and this dude, we were sitting near one another. We were like kind of seat hopping. We were all the way in the back, but we saw open seats, jumped into the seats, me and my buddy. And then this other guy did the same thing because there were 4 open seats where I was sitting. And he sat next to us with his son. And we both acknowledged, like, you seat hopping? Yeah. Like, we were all on the same page. So he, the people for him and his son's seats came over and said, hey, you got to go. Like, these are our seats. And I look at him and he's like, come on, I'm with my son. Like, basically, like, you guys go. And I mean, it could have been the wrong thing. Maybe I should have let him sit there with his son. But we didn't. I just ignored him and just continued to sit there and acted like they were my seats. And he found seats probably on the other side of the stairs, but like we could still see each other. And he kept looking back at me and he kept looking back at me. And I finally was just like, what? What's the problem?
Yeah.
He gets up, jumps over the banister on the stairs, runs up and gets in my face. This dude was like 6'4", like 280, ready to roll, like ready to fight. Now, everyone, at a sporting event, it was a Yankees game. Everyone has their phone out. Everyone's standing up looking. And this guy is jawing in my face. And I'm like, this dude's going to hit me. And my first shot was just going to be, no one ever expects it. I was just going to go for his gut. I was just going to knock his wind out, give him a fucking punch right to the gut. But I will admit, I was in fear.
Yeah.
I was in fear. I didn't admit it at the time, but I was in fear. Yeah. And this guy was just seeing red and he wanted blood and he wanted me to do one thing to give him a reason to fucking knock me out. And the cops come down and they bring me up and they separate us, bring me up, let him stay there. I said, I didn't do anything. And they're like, well, that sucks because he's a cop. I was like, oh my God. Imagine I threw that first punch. They would have dragged me out of there. I would have went to jail, probably assaulting a cop.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you hit him in the wrong place and he falls back and hits his head. You might not be sitting here with me right now.
Yeah, but it's a scary situation when someone gets up in your face and they're just like, adrenaline pumping.
And it's hard not to, there's almost something primal in that moment, isn't there? Where it's like, it's almost like something gets activated, where it's like the rational brain goes offline, the fight, flight, or freeze part of our sort of the ancient part of our brain that's been evolving for a couple million years. It's still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like to have control in that moment. I mean, this is part of why I get into martial arts. I got into martial arts in my late 20s because I knew I wanted to be a cop. I thought it looked good on a resume.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reason I get into it, to be honest with you, at first. I thought, that'll tick one of the boxes for getting on the job. But what I learned through martial arts, and which is why it's such a good thing to especially put kids in, is have you ever heard the idea that there's nothing honorable about a rabbit that doesn't kill people, doesn't kill every other animal in the forest? You ever heard that?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
So there's nothing honorable about a rabbit.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get where you're going with it.
Rabbits can't hurt anything, can't cause harm. But there's something honorable and admirable about a monster that has the capability and the potential to, but doesn't. Mm. And so martial arts is a little bit like that.
Yep.
The irony is that when you get the further you get into martial arts, the more capable you become as a martial artist.
You don't want to fight.
The less likely you are to ever want, and it's like the last ditch resort. It's like when I got on the job as a cop, I ended up having to get in an awful lot of fights. It's the nature of the job.
Yeah.
And also partly because I was one of the smaller guys on the service too. So there's always somebody wanting to challenge you, on the street. But I would talk more than anyone else I worked with, try to talk somebody down rather than getting into it. And yet I was, training full time as a fighter. That's what I love to do. But I was trying to avoid as much as I could on the street, to not have to hit somebody, to not have to use force on somebody.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
I mean, the UFC fighters, they go out, they don't want to fight. No. They don't need to prove anything to anyone.
That's it.
And they know how severe it could be if they hit someone, they fall, they hit their head the wrong way, then it's a manslaughter charge, and it's crazy.
Yeah, there was a guy, Corey McDonald was his name, and I went to the police and fire games. It's like a thing in Canada. I think they might have in the US too, where there's all kinds of different sports you can go in, and it's just for first responders to compete against one another. Everything from track and field to canoeing to judo and they had I forget what they called it, but it was basically a submission grappling area of this. So I competed in it one year. And so basically they had weight classes, and then the winner of each weight class would go in a little kind of smaller, basically tournament to see who the overall winner was. So you have heavyweights versus lightweights in that part, and then you get an absolute winner. Anyway, so I won my division. Lightweight, probably 145 or something like that.
No big deal.
Yeah. Well, so then in the overall, there was this guy who was probably about 185. His name was Corey McDonald, and I fought him in it's called the absolutes, when you fight against all different weight classes. Mm-hmm. And he, I think I lasted maybe 60 seconds. And, but he fought in a bunch of different organizations in Canada and was a title holder. And then he signed with Bellator. And I don't think he ever actually got a fight in there, but he was outside a bar in Smith Falls, the town I'm from, and a guy was confronting him, and he's a pro fighter. And so he left the scene to avoid the fight, went to a different bar in town, and this guy basically sort of followed him to this next bar, ended up at the same bar, confronted him again outside, sort of calling this guy on. And the guy who was calling on was kind of a bully in high school. I went to school with this guy, and he basically got in Corey's face to the point where, I don't know if he swung first or what happened, but where Corey didn't have an option. He kind of had to defend himself. And it was one punch. The guy fell, his head hit the concrete, and he ended up dying like 2 days later.
Did Corey get into trouble?
No.
Because he followed him to the second bar.
Yeah, it ended up being, I never heard the exact details of the investigation, but he was, I guess, justified in defending himself.
He was dismissed. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Did he even have to go to court, or?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. And Corey was a correctional officer as well, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long were you a cop for in total?
So I got hired in 2003 and I resigned in 2020.
Okay. So 17 years.
Yeah. So
take us through your career. What was it like?
Yeah.
And are you drinking and drugging at this point?
No.
Okay. So you're just like socially drinking.
Never been much of a drinker, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the story is going to take some twists here now.
Yeah.
It's been probably painted kind of an idyllic childhood, teen years, some fun through my 20s, find my wife. It's like, very lucky, grateful for all that. And then, so if I could sort of paint the picture, I guess I'd say I love my career, love being a cop, loved helping people. I love the challenge of it. And in 2008, on January 1st, it's kind of like the day before. So if I was to paint a picture of where I was at then, I'd got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. I remember that December, my coach was saying, I think it's time to line you up a pro fight in 2008, which is a big moment when your coach approaches you with something like that. I was in great shape. I was running marathons. I had 8-pack abs, and I had 3 kids. My wife was pregnant with our 4th at the time. Great relationship with my kids and my wife. Everything was just going really well. And then January 2nd, 2008, I was on duty. I was in my police car. I was going to pull over a vehicle. So I was following a vehicle. It turned off the main highway, main street. So there's traffic coming. So I stopped, waiting for the traffic to clear. And the sun was kind of setting right in front of me on that street. And the guy behind me must have been blinded by the sun. And he hit my cruiser going about 50 miles an hour. And my head took all the impact off the steering wheel. And so I was taken to the hospital. And long story short, was diagnosed with a mild traumatic brain injury and PTSD. I don't know where they come up with these terms, but mild traumatic brain injury. It's like a mild divorce or mild, it's not the right term.
Mild death.
Right? Yeah, mild bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I was off work. I was off work for about 20 months. What that looked like was cognitive deficits, migraines, balance problems, real problems in regulating my emotions. The PTSD part, which kind of those symptoms overlap with the head injury, but I was scared. Couldn't drive for about a year. So when I did drive, if a car was anywhere close to me, I'd be like jamming on the brakes, kind of a really bad startle response, thinking I was going to get hit. And I got to a point very quickly where I wasn't sure if I wanted to live, which seems probably hard to sort of understand given the picture I painted on January 1st of that year. But again, I attribute some of this to basically having like a 500 or 1,000 horsepower engine. So you can cover a lot of ground when you're going in the right direction. But if you go the wrong way up a one-way street with that kind of horsepower, you can think yourself into some pretty fucking dark places pretty quick. And that's what I did. I can still remember we had a motorcycle and I can remember driving on the pavement right on the edge of the gravel. This thing just opened up as fast as it would go, screaming into my helmet. And not going into the gravel, but wanting to. And I got to that place really quick. And I kind of wasn't doing anything to recover, to bring my brain back to health. But then something happened. So at the time, like I say, 3 kids, and on the way that May, my second daughter was born. So there's 4 kids. And my wife was trying to explain to my youngest son why daddy was so different. Why daddy wasn't reading bedtime stories. Why daddy wasn't playing with him outside. Just why he was a different daddy altogether. And my son, he was just a little wee guy at the time, maybe 3 or 4. He's sort of trying to compute this in his little see him in his little face. And then he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, well, I want my real daddy to come home. And it was in that moment, it's the how-to do anything in life is fairly easy and the answers are accessible, aren't they? Just Google search or go on YouTube. But it's the why. And in that moment, I found the motivation, the motive, the reason why to recover. And then again, once I got this 1,000 horsepower engine facing the right way, I was able to recover quite quickly too. Because I realized in that moment that it wasn't just about me and my suffering, but that I was part of a larger social fabric of my wife and kids and family. And they were all being harmed by my inability to engage in sort of the recovery process. So I got better in short order and got back to work.
What did recovery look like?
Well, one second.
Mm-hmm.
Recovery from that first injury was sleeping a lot and basically just getting back in shape. I let myself go. So I went from that kind of washboard ab, great physique, great shape to overweight and sort of lethargic. And, I sleep in 20 hours a day. And part of that was the head injury. That's very common with brain injuries that you need to sleep a lot. But part of it too, if I'm to be fully transparent and honest, I was hiding.
Yeah.
I was hiding from life. It's like, so you get out there in the world as a cop or a correctional officer, what you realize quite quickly is there's dragons afoot. There's a lot of scary things out there. And so when I got hurt with that head injury and with the diagnosis of PTSD, I kind of went and hid in the cave.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of just sort of stay under the warm covers and, not have to face those things. Mm-hmm. But, when my son said that to me on that day, I decided that what I learned, I guess, was that if you're in the cave to avoid the monsters, sometimes the monsters come and find you in there. Ooh. Now, it may not be the monster of facing a bad guy, a suspect at work. It may not be the monster of engaging in a pursuit as a cop. Maybe in the monster of, but you know what the monster is instead? It's things like depression.
It's yourself.
Purposelessness, anxiety hiding in the cave. Losing your sense of identity.
Yep.
Those monsters come creeping in anyway. So I realized, I might as well draw my sword, exit the cave and go slicing dragons.
Yeah. Because
I'd rather fail forward than backward. Mm-hmm. And I was failing on leaning back on my heels.
So you recover.
Yeah.
You go back to work. Now,
work.
does life kind of fall back into place for you? Are you back in routine with your kids and your wife? Did your marriage take a hit from everything that had happened with the brain injury?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our marriage stayed intact, but and this is some of the maybe shame or guilt for what I did to my wife, And I know, sometimes when I've shared my story with people, they sort of jump in when they see this emotion. They're like, well, you were injured, or, trying to take the shame or guilt away. And I say, screw that. I don't want to lose any shame and guilt over what's happened in this story. You're going to hear the rest of it too, because I want to keep one eye on that darkness, because it's the push from behind to keep moving towards the light in my own life. And so we got through it. But when we got through the other side of that first injury, things went back to normal for the most part. Mm-hmm. What we did find out was that through MRI and other imaging is the only remnants from that injury in my brain where they found some petechial hemorrhaging, some evidence of petechial hemorrhaging, which iron shows up on the MRI. So there was some damage to my brain, obviously, in the first accident, but relatively minor. Mm-hmm. And I did, I think, make a not full recovery because I still had a few lingering symptoms, but for the most part, I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so things were somewhat back to normal.
Yeah.
And then in 2013, we got a call to two roommates fighting. So we get to this scene, and it was kind of in an upstairs apartment, and the stairs going up to the apartment, there's like blood all over the walls, all over the stairs. We weren't sure what the hell we were walking into. So we get in there, and these roommates are fighting. The one roommate's totally sober. It was like 7:00 on a Sunday morning. And the other one had been out partying all night and came home wanting to fight for no reason. He was out of his mind on drugs and alcohol. And it took us a long time just to get him cuffed. Big dude, strong dude. So we're rolling around on the floor with this guy trying to get him cuffed. We finally get him cuffed and to get him down the stairs and out to the cruiser. He's fighting the whole way to the hospital because we got to take him to the hospital because the sober roommate defending himself had cut the guy pretty bad on the arch of his eye. So we got to take him to get stitched up before we take him back to the station. And so we take him to the hospital, ER, and he starts to calm a bit. And so I'm kind of behind him. He's sitting on the bed. The doctor and nurse are kind of tending to him. I'm standing behind him and I just kind of have my hand on his cuffs because he's cuffed back just to sort of make sure he doesn't do anything, lunge at them or not. And he was kind of starting to be really compliant then. So I just kind of like sort of let go. And I think he was waiting for that moment. And he sort of jumped up and back, throwing his whole body weight and head and kind of like, I guess it would be like a reverse headbutt and caught me right here. And I was standing and I was out on my feet, hit the hospital room floor. So it was sort of a double whammy and was out. And I guess I was in the right place for that to happen.
In the hospital.
Yeah. They just put me on another gurney and took me down to x-ray. And then I was off work again. At the time, we didn't know the full extent of it, but it turned out later it was what to be described as a moderate traumatic brain injury. So through MRIs and stuff, much later they determined it was bilateral frontal lobe damage, permanent damage. But we didn't learn all that until much later because I immediately minimized all the symptoms. Mm-hmm. Went home.
I'm sorry.
No.
Please. Did he break your eye socket?
No, it wasn't fractured. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get your MRI done and everything. And then are you off work again after this?
Yeah. So I took a couple months off. I had all the symptoms similar to the first injury, but worse. The migraines being one of the worst things. The fatigue of wanting to sleep. Like when I say 20 hours a day, I mean like, sleep for 14 hours, wake up, have something to eat, and barely being able to keep my eyes open, going back to bed. Balance issues, emotional regulation issues. But after a couple months of sleeping, I went back to work. Should not have gone back to work. I think I was in denial a little bit, but I was scared because at the time we were actually, Perth Police was being taken over by the OPP, which is the provincial police force of all of Ontario. Mm-hmm. We were being taken over and I was worried I might not have a job, despite being told by people that I was going to have a job. So I went back to work. And very quickly, my coworkers started to realize there was something wrong with me. I'd be on my way to calls with somebody. I'd be asleep in the passenger seat beside them. Just missing details of calls, not functioning very well. I mean, I can remember we got this call it was a gun call. So it was a suicidal male, but with firearms. And it was my call. I was a primary on it. I can still remember racing up Highway 511. It's a highway in our area. And, probably going 170, 180, I don't know, whatever we were, lights and sirens up a nice clear highway.
And that's kilometers, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I'm in the US. Yeah.
What is that, like 100, 120?
Yeah, 110, probably something like that, miles an hour. And
I'm like 170, what?
You're thinking, wow, what are you guys driving up there for cruisers, man? So I'm flying and there's, I don't know, 2 or 3 units. I know there was an ERT, which is emergency response team guy. So our tactical dude was in one trucker car behind me, another police officer. There's a few units behind me and I'm kind of leading the charge up this highway. And, a few minutes into this, I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I know I'm going 110 miles per hour up this highway, but I can't remember what the hell I've just been sent to. And so I had to, 10-9, which just means repeat communication to dispatch. What's the address? And so they told me the address I was going to. Didn't trigger my memory. I didn't know what I was going to. I literally showed up. I was showing up to calls, not even knowing what I was showing up to. Yeah. And so at that time, I started getting prescribed a very small amount of opiate. Just like, like 30 megs of codeine, something like that. My family doctor was good. She was very vigilant around being wary of giving me any pain meds, especially for someone with a brain injury. Like they're much more vulnerable to addiction.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, sort of frontal executive function in your brain where you can sort of modulate and regulate. So it just gave me a little bit. And so I started using codeine then. That quickly turned into something a lot bigger and uglier, because what I found was the opiate worked. I mean, it's never been a mystery to me why people struggle with drugs and alcohol. The mystery to me is, why the hell doesn't everybody struggle with drugs and alcohol? The shit works.
Yep.
Right. In terms of helping us numb pain, whether it be physical or emotional, help us sort of avoid things and responsibility sometimes or whatever. So it was working. It was giving me energy. It was keeping me awake. But that quickly turned into going beyond what I was prescribed and seeking out, perks, oxys, other things like that. The addiction didn't get sort of completely off the rails when I was on duty. It was getting bad, but luckily I was kind of, I'll just tell you what happened. So I was parked in the back of the station at our detachment, and I had some pills in my hand. I can't remember exactly what kind of a cocktail of stuff that would have been at that time. There might've been some ephedrine in there too. So I was using whatever I could to stay awake, and some opiates, but I was falling asleep. And again, at that time, it wouldn't have been like nods from too much opiate. Would have been, shouldn't be at work because you got a bad traumatic brain injury as well. And I was just sort of like this with all the pills in my hand. I hear this. It's my sergeant. I rolled down my window. "What's up, Sarge? Just meet me inside." And so I went inside, and he said, "You need to take some time off. Everybody here is noticing some things. Everybody's worried about you." Kind of chokes me up because, he could have, got me in trouble. He could have gone a different route with that. But he just said, "We're worried about you. Take some time. Don't make me make you take some time off. Just take the time." And so, I went off.
What year was that?
2013.
2013. What was your initial reaction when he said to you, and he came from a place of concern and love?
Yeah.
Like you said, he could have fired you. And I'm asking this because there are a lot of people that maybe not even police officers in corporate America. I was in corporate America, and I had a horrible Oxycontin problem. Everyone noticed in my office. I don't know about you, but opiates gave me energy, actually. It's crazy. With addicts who get addicted to opiates, you give me an Oxycontin, I'll clean your whole house. Like that, seriously. Like
so true.
It did for me what Coke would do for a normal person. And then if I did Coke, I was just like normal. I could think. My thoughts were very clear.
Yeah.
I have ADHD really bad. Yeah. So it's like.
No wonder you like stimulants then, yeah.
Right. So I remember I can't tell my job because A, I'm probably going to get fired. No one's going to understand. No one knows what I'm going through. And I really don't have a problem anyways. So why even bring it to, like the denial. But but look, the denial was rooted because I didn't think anyone could relate. And I thought I was going to get in trouble. And then I finally went to my manager, and he was like, "Thank God. Oh,
they knew.
We love you. We just want to make sure you're okay. Like you should go away."
Wow.
And like the love and support. And I was fearing it so much. So that's why I want to ask you, what were your initial thoughts going? You knew why he was calling you into the office. Was it to maybe deny it, or no, I don't have a problem, or did you embrace it?
Yeah, it's hard to know what I was thinking in that moment and that's why, when I first came here today, I brought some notes, right? And because, as I was reflecting on coming and doing this talk with you, trying to remember some of these things, you got to remember, like I had a bad traumatic brain injury, and then you add in the opiates. It's like, our memory is only as good as the state we're in at the moment that we're remembering something. Mm-hmm. And so some of these memories are really fuzzy. And I actually checked in with, one of my kids, a couple of my kids, and my wife prior to this podcast, because I wanted to clarify, like, this is how I remember this. Am I out to lunch? Was this actually what it was like? And it turns out there's a bit of a discrepancy there between like my recollection of events and what actually happened, because I was in this fog after the head injury and with dosing myself. So I think it was a relief, to be off. So I went off because there's a lot of shame there. It's one thing to have an opiate addiction, which is awful, but I had an opiate addiction. I was abusing drugs, and I swore, I took an oath to uphold the law. I was out there breaking, in a sense. I was putting other people's lives in danger, my coworkers, brothers and sisters in the police force, Yeah. And so I guess in one sense, I was relieved when I went off. And what happened next with me was the strangest thing. So, when you have a brain injury, there tends to be a whole team of clinicians. And so it was clear that I needed further sort of follow up on that part of it. And eventually, so it was like psychiatrist, physiatrist, OT, psychologist, eventually a neurosurgeon, a full team of people helping me. And what came out of that was I was diagnosed with bipolar as well, type 2 bipolar. And so what that meant was, over the course of several months, a lot of sort of guessing and sort of what drugs to give me. Eventually, I was on 8 different psychiatric meds. I woke up with Concerta. You would like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice psychostimulant for ADHD, because I was sleeping and couldn't maintain attention and focus. So I wake up with that. Then I was on 2 different antidepressants, an antipsychotic, an anxiolytic, lorazepam, which is kind of like Valium, mood stabilizer, 800 milligrams of Seroquel.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes, and my whole audience knows what Seroquel is.
Yeah, so it was, I believe at the highest point, it was 400 mgs of like a slower release and 400 mgs of a quicker release Seroquel.
Oh my God. You were on all those meds?
Yeah.
And then you were self-medicating too?
Yeah.
Did you continue to use when he put you on leave?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it got worse.
Okay.
Yeah. And, and one of the guys that I used with was also in law enforcement, and he ended up off work too. But yeah. And so I was on all these meds, and basically the opiates were almost like the counterweight to those psychiatric meds. Because just like you sort of the stereotype when people that don't know, but opiate users think they're kind of like nodding off. It's like, no, not for some of us, at least. It's like, it was the only thing that was giving me some energy. Mm-hmm. But none of these things were really putting a dent in anything. They're probably making it worse, a lot of these drugs. So then they upped the deal and gave me a form of shock treatment. It's called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is basically they use a really powerful magnet up against your head, and they get it sort of dialed into a level where you're just sub-threshold for seizure. So, regular shock therapy is they put you unconscious and put you into a seizure. This is they keep you awake. They figure out the level where you just start to basically twitch, sort of pre-seizure, and they dose you that every day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks. Yeah. And if you want to ask me what that felt like.
What did it feel like? Exactly
like what you think an induced electric current would feel like against your head. Yeah. Very uncomfortable. Yeah.
What did it do though? It gave you more energy and like made you more aware, remember things?
So I believe the theory behind it is it's going to stimulate a region of the brain that's inactive or underactive. Is the theory. It's often used for depression.
Got it.
Again, it didn't, when you're on that many chemicals to begin with, I mean, what's doing what's helping, what isn't, but I didn't notice any sort of change in it.
So you said your opiate use got worse. Take us through. I mean, spoiler alert, you're 9 years clean and sober.
Yes.
And congratulations. That was a couple days ago that you just celebrated. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
2016 is when you got sober? Okay.
July 14th, yeah.
So you have another 3 years from 2013, where we're at now, up until when you got clean and sober. Take us through those 3 years and kind of the, your opiate use and how it kind of even took off further down the road those last 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, it got to the point where it was sort of big impacts financially. These aren't cheap. Oxys and stuff are pretty expensive.
Are you buying them on the street?
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the guy that he used with a lot had some connections, and yeah. Again, you can see the sort of the shame that washes over me, right? And it's not just because I was accessing drugs in that way, but because of my previous career.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where, you probably know what it's like, where it's like, I'm planning for today, I'm planning for tomorrow, make sure I have enough drug. And it's, I was to the point where, I didn't realize this till now, or till later, but I wasn't using drugs to get high anymore. I was using drugs to get normal. In the initial stages, it's like the drug raises you up.
Mm-hmm.
But then after you use long enough, there's so much attenuation in your receptors that you're just in a down, and you use enough drug to feel somewhat normal again and avoid withdrawals. I mean, I can remember going into Walmart and getting over the counter, you could get these. I think it was like acetaminophen with like 8 milligrams of codeine. Like you get it, you don't need a script. You could get it because 8 milligrams of codeine doesn't do a lot.
Yeah.
So I'd buy like 50 or 100 and do cold water extractions to get the, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would do cold water extractions to get enough opiate just to stave off the withdrawals. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're getting these pills now unethically.
Thank you for saying it in a way like that. It sounds better.
No, you're good, man. You're good. We can paint the picture. So what was the last few months like before you got sober, and how did you end up getting sober?
Our best friends, she was in a little bit of an accident with, she actually got hit by her dog and fell and broke her leg really bad, needed surgery. And they're our best friends in the world. And he's actually a cardiac surgeon. And he was in a really busy schedule at that point in his life. And so they reached out and asked if I could come up and help Les, because she was up on the couch, couldn't move, post-op, and help take care of their kids and their family. Their family. We've known them for 25 years. We've been best friends with these people. And so I wasn't working. So I had the spare time. So I went up to help Les and help, drive their kids places and stuff when Darren wasn't able to because he was at the hospital a lot. And so I was also like, getting less food so she didn't have to go off the couch or to bed and stuff, and getting her pills and stuff. There's a point in time where she asked, I think, that maybe she needed some hydromorph or whatever it was that she'd been given post-op. And I must have looked at her funny. And she said, what is there no more left? Have you taken my drugs or something? Like sort of jokingly, but I didn't smile or laugh. Because I have been. Yeah. I mean, how low do you get? Yeah. Taking your best. And I love her. I was taking my best friend's pills. Yeah. Avoiding my pain was more important than helping quell hers with the meds. And again, there's shame there. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the shame and guilt. I don't want to like process it and make it okay because I was hurt and damaged at the time. I don't want to justify it. I want to keep it crystal clear, as hard as it is to look at, because that's the push from behind I need to keep moving towards the light.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget it.
Yeah.
Every time I tell this story, I've only shared that a couple times, but I want to feel like shit when I share it because it's a reminder I never want to go back to being that person. And so my friends and my wife basically said, you got to go to rehab. And I said, I ain't going to rehab. And so I bargained a bit and I said, you know what? I'm not going to rehab, not yet, but I'll go to NA. And to be honest, that was just to sort of appease them.
Yeah, I would get everyone off your back.
That's it, man. Yeah.
Really quick, what did the husband say to you? The friend, the husband, the surgeon, did they like freak out on you when you said you took them all? Or were they more concerned?
I don't remember him saying too much to me.
Yeah.
Again, he's great. He's a great man.
Yeah.
Really lucky. Yeah, I don't remember. He didn't get mad at me.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. Because, I was driving their kids around too,
Yeah.
But Yeah. So went to NA. First NA meeting was in a church in Ottawa. And remember going there, and there was a liquor store pretty close by, basically across the street. Got a 6-pack of beer. Sad. I understand your audience. There's a lot of people in recovery probably listening to this.
Everyone identifies.
I bet you everyone at home is going, yeah, me too. I've done that, right?
Yeah.
Which if you're have never, you know,
don't do it,
right? Right. And the thing is, alcohol is not even my drug of choice. Like I barely drink. I don't drink. Like I'm not a drinker. Like I have the odd, couple drinks a year basically, or a couple times, a few times a year. So I sort of slammed the 6-pack back in the parking lot to get the courage to go to my first NA meeting. Mm-hmm. And then my second NA meeting, they were kind of going around the circle. I can still remember, this with great clarity, thinking like, I don't belong here. Like I'm a cop. I'm this or I'm that. And I'm like judging everyone in the circle.
Thought you were better than.
Oh man, this was so bad.
I did the same thing.
Did you?
Of course. Yeah. Everyone does it. You compare yourself, but it's ego and pride, but that is derived from, that's your alcoholism. That is your addiction telling you, you don't belong here. Go out and go back to, go get another 6-pack or go get pills. Yeah. That's what it is. That's built into addicts and alcoholics.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So you thought you were better then. How did that play out?
Yeah. So I can't remember the exact what kind of meeting that was because there's different types, as you know, different types of meetings. But it was kind of in a circle, and it was coming around to me, and I was sitting there thinking all of this, and then it just hit me. I'm like, I'm at an NA meeting, and I'm high right now. I'm like. And it, came to me and I said, hi, my name's Hal. And I'm sure I said it like this. I'm an addict. It didn't hit me till then that I really was not in control of my addiction, that I really was powerless. High at an NA meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the beginning of my sobriety. And, that was the end of me sort of what I call failing backwards. You know what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. Again, the cave, hide in the cave. Another way to look at that is I was failing at life, leaning back on my heels. Mm-hmm. And I decided then and there that I was going to start sort of failing forward in my life. And have you ever heard or are you familiar with the Chinese bamboo tree?
Of course. Yeah.
So it was a bit like that. It was the Chinese bamboo tree is a very hard nut. So it's got to stay buried in the soil for 5 years. It doesn't grow an inch, doesn't break through the soil. Then in the 5th year, when it finally decides to break through the soil, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. It's the only plant, right, that you can sit and watch it grow. Mm. And that's what recovery was like for me. So once I determined that I was going to recover and I had the reasons why to recover, I was done hurting people in my life. Addiction is so selfish. I won't speak for anybody else, but for me, it's so selfish.
Same.
Yeah. And so I literally sat down and asked myself some questions. And basically came up with a how-to. Not just the how-to to be sober, but the how-to to live my best life. It was 2016. I literally sat at my kitchen table and I asked myself the question, what kind of habits would I have to embrace? What would I have to do every day if this was the project of becoming the best man I could become? And what life principles would I need to embrace to become the best version of Hal that I could become? I literally put them on paper and I basically put them on the fridge, essentially, somewhere I could see them. And I said, I'm going to do this every day for 90 days. No days off, no breaks from it. I'm going to see what happens. I got nothing to lose at this point. And within, a few months, I started helping facilitate at men's retreats for PTSD. A few months after that, I started public speaking. A few months after that, I was a keynote speaker, doing workshops on teaching resiliency to other people. And, another year or two after that, I went back to school and started my master's degree in counseling and psychology to become a psychotherapist.
What were some of those principles that you wrote down?
Yeah. Well, they're on my hand on my compass.
Oh.
Yeah. So my true north principle that I wrote down that day was more love, less judgment. But I came up with that and each of my principles from things that happened to me in my life. And so I'll just share this one principle at least is the gentleman that attacked me at the hospital that caused the really bad damage. So what happens, I don't know if you have this in the US, but in Canada, we have something called a community justice forum or healing circle. So what it is it doesn't get used very much, but it's based on some Aboriginal and Indigenous practices where in a lot of their communities, if someone breaks the law, they have like a community circle with the elders, people that maybe were hurt by whatever happened, and the person who did the wrong. And they kind of sit in a circle and try to sort of hash it out to avoid maybe police intervention or to come up with the best way for healing for everyone in the community about what happened. Mm-hmm. So the OPP in Canada, in Ontario, have adopted, they call it the Community Justice Forum, but it's basically a healing circle. And so I was approached after that incident to ask if I'd be willing to do a healing circle with this individual which was a unique situation because I was a cop, but I was also a victim. And so I agreed to do it. And so basically the format of that. Mm-hmm. The way a healing circle or community justice forum works is the accused comes and can bring any of their friends and support that they want to bring to this. There's a court, basically mediator that comes. So this is an official meeting where if the parties come to terms of something, it's held up in the courts if parties can agree to something. And then the accused or the victim can come and bring any friends and support that they want to bring. Mm-hmm. And so the gentleman that had assaulted me was probably looking at potential prison time for that level of assault against a police officer with an injury that was life-changing. We're looking at some serious time. Mm-hmm. So he came and he brought a lot of friends and family. On that side of the circle, it was kind of full over there on that side of the room. On my side of the circle, it was just me. My wife wasn't ready to come. And I think she would have maybe attacked him if she came. She was pretty angry. Yeah. Understandably so, right? Because as much as this impacted me, this incident, that injury, the amount it impacted my wife and kids, it would be impossible to measure. So I get there that day. And so the way it works is the victim, in that case it was me, explains the incident and the impact it's had on them in their life. And then the accused kind of does the same. And then you sort of open up a dialogue for maybe avoiding this going to trial, mm-hmm. which when I was on my way there, did not think that was going to be a possibility because I was filled with anger. Mm-hmm. And so it's my turn to speak. I'm kind of looking at the floor, just sort of not wanting to look at him or his support system. And I'm explaining, my sort of take on what I remembered from that day, which wasn't a lot, but more importantly, the aftermath and the impact, my wife, my family, my potential career, because at that point, the prognosis wasn't good for my ability to work ever again. And so I'm sort of staring at the floor. I'm kind of in my trance, just explaining what's happened. And all of a sudden there's like a noise on the other side of the circle. I kind of ignore it. And the noise kind of like grows and spreads until finally I'm kind of like shaken out of my sort of haze there. And I look up and the noise is him sobbing, but not just him, everyone on the other side of the room hearing my story. They're just breaking down. And I mean, sobbing. And in that moment, I realized life isn't black and white. There's shades of gray. And I built him up to be this monster, this dragon who had done this to me, but he was just a human being that was struggling, I think, with his own addictions. And so in that moment, I changed. Sometimes life isn't a dimmer switch with change. Sometimes it's a on-off. And I got up and I crossed the circle and I stood in front of him and I told him to stand up. And I'm pretty sure he thought I was going to punch him in the nose. And I think he would have leaned into it for me at that point. And he stood up and I gave him a hug. And I said, I forgive you. I said, the only thing you owe me going forward is to show somebody else more love and less judgment someday. And so we hashed out some sort of conditions that as long as he abided by them, the charges would go away, including, I think, a recovery program for his alcoholism. And I asked that they include in those conditions that he would meet with me once a month for coffee to try to turn the enemy into a friend. And the last I knew years ago was that he got clean and he was a supervisor in a industrial sort of plant in town, that he was having some success in his life. But if I had just stayed angry and stuck, he would have probably done prison time. Wow. And so more love and less judgment was a principle I knew I needed to come up with and take with me from that moment, because I needed a principle with how I was going to deal with my fellow men and women. Most of our problems in life are not with inanimate objects. They're with these other humans that are bumping into us. And I knew I needed an approach that would be effective to become the best version of myself. And more love, with love being a verb, not a feeling. Love is an action. And less judgment, simply meaning that I realized in my life that a lot of my anger, frustration, disappointments were based on the expectations I had of everyone around me. It was that gap between expectations and reality that I filled with frustration, anger, resentment. And so less judgment to me means, keeping reality and my expectations and belief about the world in alignment, so there isn't that gap with my fellow human beings. So that's my true north for principles that I try to live by. I'm very imperfect, but it's always there to remind me.
I love that. We walk around with, just humans in general, we walk around with a lot of anger and taking things personal when we don't know someone else's situation. That guy went on to probably help many more people because he said he got clean. I'm sure he sponsored people. I'm sure that's what we do, right? We help others, and you speak publicly, you help others. You saved probably not just his life, but you saved probably a room full of people based off of that decision and that principle that you implemented and you followed through on.
Yeah.
We don't realize this.
No. Yeah, it's part of that principle is that even the smallest action, if it's motivated and inspired by love, never underestimate what it can do. I started a peer support group for first responders with operational stress, PTSD injuries. And there was this one guy, he was a medic, and he was going through a hard time. And I remember he was texting me, I think before or after one of the meetings that we had every week there. And he was struggling, whatever. I just kind of went back and forth on text, figured he was okay. Just, see him at the next meeting kind of thing. And then it hit me. This principle sort of kicked in. Okay. More love. What's that mean? Well, love is a verb. This is bullshit. I'm just texting the guy. Pick up the fucking phone, Hal, and give him a call. So I did. It was no big deal to me. I, 10, 15-minute phone call with him, gave him a little support. Nothing too extreme in terms of what went on in that phone call. But then the next week at the meeting, we go around the circle, everyone kind of checks in, the deal. And it came around to him and he just burst into tears. He's like, I was going to kill myself last week.
Oh my God.
But Hal called. And I knew I wasn't alone. So I'm here this week. Never underestimate what the smallest little action can have as an impact when it's inspired and driven by love.
That's so powerful. It's crazy. I I've been in that situation
Yeah.
and I didn't make the phone call.
Yeah, me too.
I've been in that situation many times.
Yep.
And I don't know how it impacted that person. Because potentially they may not have gone to that meeting the next week and I didn't run into them and I just figured they moved or whatever. But those little actions that we do take, those extra measures that we take, you know, a call instead of a text. It's more convenient to text someone, you know?
Right.
The little action, you said it was a 15-minute call. It was 15 minutes out of your day.
It's nothing.
And it saved a life.
Yeah.
You talked about before the evolution. Right after you got sober, you started speaking. Then you became a keynote speaker a few months after that. Now, this was all in your first year of sobriety, right? When you became a keynote speaker?
Yeah, it all happened quite quick. Yeah.
So I am all about, you know, I sponsor. Let's get you through the steps. Let's have you start speaking at meetings ASAP.
Yeah.
Now, when that was presented to me when I was new, I had imposter syndrome. My message isn't good enough. I only have 90 days. I have 91 days today. I shouldn't be speaking at a meeting. What do I have to offer? You hit the ground running. Did you have imposter syndrome? And if you did or didn't, let's say the listener right now who is in that position, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I would say about that is your question was, did you have imposter syndrome? I think the better question might be, do you have imposter syndrome? Because no matter what we've been through or what we've done or what we achieved, don't we all have that little, am I fucking enough?
Yep.
I had to come in here today. I didn't sleep last night. I wanted to bail. I'm like, who the fuck am I to be on this guy's podcast? This guy's doing a booming podcast here. He's doing great. Who am I to show up? What the hell do I have to offer? Yeah. So did I have imposter syndrome? Yeah. Do I still? Absolutely. I want to share a real quick little story about that. And I know the person that's in this story, I won't name them, but I know they would give me permission to share it. They're a very prominent position in a hospital as a surgeon. But beyond that, like, you know, really high level of management, administrative, beyond just being a high level surgeon. And they were at some kind of a meeting for all the executives, clinical staff and stuff. And there was some problem that they needed the answer to some question. And this was kind of brought up, and then the whole room kind of turned and looked at him. This is a guy with 4 years of undergrad university, a master's degree, a doctorate, a residency, 20 some years of post-secondary school education, not to mention however many years at that point of actually saving people's lives with surgery. And the room turned to him. You're the guy. What's the answer? And he said he could feel like, so he shared that story with me a long time ago and just reminded me that we're all walking around unsure. We're all walking around wondering if we're enough for the people in our life, wondering if we're enough to show up at a fucking podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What tools have you implemented to get through and fight through that imposter syndrome?
I think imposter syndrome can be quelled and minimized through action. Yeah. I think there's a lot of things in life, and as a therapist, I'm often talking about this with my clients. There's no thinking your way out of some things.
That's the worst place.
Right? It's like, you've probably heard this before, but, in therapy, one of the things we talk about is sort of this triad of belief, actions, results.
Yeah.
Okay. So with cognitive therapies of different types, it's like, well, let's talk about what you think, your beliefs about something, and then that'll change your behavior. And it can. That's one point of intervention. So that would be like, you're scared of heights. So let's talk about how taking that rock climbing course is actually less dangerous than driving through that intersection in your car. We can talk about it all day long. And then maybe when you go to do the action, you'll have less fear and then you'll get the results you want. You're successful. But an alternate approach, and this is the approach I tend to use more in my personal life, is the actions approach. So I skip the belief. You want to overcome your fear of heights? Take a rock climbing course. You'll be scared the whole fucking time you're there, but you'll get the results that you survived it, which will change your belief that rock climbing is super dangerous. So how do you, I think your original question there was overcoming this imposter syndrome? Mm-hmm. Action. Yeah. You have to create a big enough evidence file that when some part of you looks back at it, it can look at it and go, oh, okay, mm-hmm. I am enough.
Yep.
I've done enough. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so it's funny, anytime I'm asked to go speak at a meeting in front of, 40, 50 people, I have the same feelings that you had. I don't want to go. How can I cancel? Whatever. Yeah. And it was the action. In the very beginning, I was like, F it. I'm just fighting through it. I've identified, I have the awareness to know this is imposter syndrome. And every time I fight through it and I take that action, at the end, I'm so grateful. I'm like, I am so glad I did that.
Yes.
I'm so glad. So now because I took the action, I reference how I feel. I remember how I feel after it. And I've applied it now to, rock climbing, surfing, to whatever it is. And it's funny. I worked at Google and day one, we're all sitting in training. Now, Google's training program is a prominent program. And he goes, first thing, he goes, I know what you all are thinking. You probably all have imposter syndrome. We don't belong here. We're new here. They only hire kids who have gone to Ivy League schools. Right. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. He's like, I felt the same way, and so did every other employee here. And it kind of just lightened the mood a little bit. And I mean, if they're saying it there, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And I love that you talked about action because that applies to anything in life. You want to change your situation. You're struggling with drugs and alcohol. I get it. I was in the grips of addiction and I'm a tough sponsor.
Yeah.
You're sitting in your shit. What are we going to do about it? Let's take the action.
Yeah.
I do feel bad about people who can't get sober and clean. There are different walks of life out there and people have fortunate situations and unfortunate situations. Some have resources, some don't have resources.
Yeah.
But there's always a way. If you really want to do it, there is a way.
Yeah. But it takes courage.
Takes courage.
Yeah. And I talk about courage a surprising amount in my clinical practice. You think psychotherapists, they talk about courage? Yeah, every day. Because courage is the antidote to fear. And fear is always at the heart of what we're struggling with in life, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's funny, I was sharing that I was scared to come here today. And so I was scared. So it required courage for me to come today. And courage comes from the root cur, which means heart. The real old definition of courage meant to tell one's full story with one's full heart. In other words, to embrace and express who you really are. To risk getting tomatoes or getting rejected. Yeah.
Hal, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. You're awesome. I know you help a lot of people. You have over the past 9 years. Congratulations on 9 years of sobriety.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for traveling down here to come on the show.
It was an honor. Thank you.